Gets away from Kante, plays down the line for Suarez. 98 team of the year, Suarez.
Here's a big chance.
Ramos.
Suarez, what's he going to do? Tries to feed it back. Is that going to come to Ronaldo? Just trying to get a foot on that, maybe. Pull it now. The man that Bullock loves. Half turn there from Torres. Vieira back to Suarez on the finesse, and there we have it. The Bullock is in London. He turns around. He celebrates. The Bullock. He had a plan, and he's performed it.
You're listening to the Fut Champions Podcast with Richard and Brandon. What's going on? Welcome back to a brand new Fut Champions Podcast, episode 15 we're on now, and we're back once again to recap the world of competitive FIFA or eSports FIFA. And as always, I've always got my host with me, Richard Buckley, but unfortunately no Colin again this week. We did catch up with him at the Gfinity Elite series, our first week over there, which was great fun, and we're looking forward to following that competition all the way through again. You can catch that on a Friday night over at Gfinity. But as I said, no Colin this week, unfortunately. We hope to have him back next week. But as I said, the man that's always next to me, always says next to me, because sometimes he literally is, obviously, when I'm commentating with him. Richard Buckley, another podcast, another week. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Brandon. Usually, I've found the trend of my introduction to the podcast is saying how well I am or how unwell I am. So the trend will continue. Probably maybe a 7 out of 10 today. I'm not doing too bad at all. They just play a couple of games of FIFA and suffered a couple of heavy defeats, I should say, to the hands of a couple of pros. But got a busy weekend, Brandon. When this podcast has gone out, we will have been at the Draft Story Cup over in Germany in association with the B Part Gaming. Sure, that's going to be a very good event, and looking forward to commentating over that one. But enough of that for right now. We have got a very, very experienced, solid pro in the house, Brandon, haven't we?
We have indeed. I think it's our first French player we've ever had on the podcast as well. But before we introduce him, over the last few weeks, I don't think I've really taken the time out to do it enough. Thank you ever so much for the support on the podcast. If you didn't know, we do Life as a Pro now as well. Another kind of similar podcast idea, but over on YouTube with face cams, etc. So if you want to go check that out, we'll put that in the description below. But as always, thank you for supporting this podcast. Without you guys, the podcast wouldn't be in a position now. But back to the pros, you said, Richard. You know, a big player from France. I always get this wrong. I always worry about the pronunciations of names for players. I think he's our... Am I correct, Richard, in saying he's probably our first French player on this podcast?
And you're right, Brandon. It is our first French player, and all the honour does go to him, Olympique Lyon's player, Rafsou. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
And if you didn't know this man already, I don't know where you've been in the FIFA competitive scene. He was in Barcelona competing. He has been doing exceptionally well over in the E-League or the Orange E-Ligue, if I'm anywhere near right on that in France. But Rafsou, it's a pleasure to have you on, mate. And you know, how are you on this day? What have you been up to, and how's the life of a FIFA pro?
These days, I don't play a lot of FIFA because last month it was a qualifying month. As you know, it was for Manchester, and I didn't make it because this month I didn't play well. I was like, I had to, maybe practice a little more because maybe the gameplay isn't what I wanted to play with, And I think I'm not the only pro who choked this month.
So what went wrong for you during the qualifying month? Was it one bad weekend, or was it an accumulation of maybe 36 or 37s?
No, this is the first one. I was sick, and
Okay.
I did the first one. I did 34, and all the thing about it is like I lost some games that I didn't have to lose them, and after that I lose and another, and it all goes to 34. And after this weekend, just say that this is, you just have to do 340 or you're out.
It's a bit of an ask, isn't it?
Yep. This is very hard. It's 140, so 3. This is like quite impossible.
One thing to talk about with that is, the competitive levels, or the competition levels, I should say, especially this year, with all the prizes and all the tournaments that we had last year, it has gone up another notch this year. Do you agree? Because you see it there, if you're not hitting a minimum of 37, 38, 39s a week, you're not in that selection of elite players, are you?
But I think this year it's easier to qualify than last year, because this year you have to be in the 64th best player in the world. I can say this, but for us European players, this is easier, because last year we had to be 12 player, I think, and 12 in European. This is so hard to be in, and even if I didn't make it this year, it was this year it was very easier, and unfortunately, as I said, I choked everything.
And you spoke then that you'd have to hit 340 and O's. Talk to me, as a pro player, how hard is it to hit 140 and O? How hard is it to do the perfect weekend?
I don't think this is hard, because 30 for me, 37 is like a 40, but you took 3 games, and those 3 games there is a lot of time. Those 3 games you had to win them. This is not versus some pros player. This is some random, as if I can say it, random players. And you hit the post, and you are in one-on-one, and you choke the one-on-one. And there is the 40 is like, if you have the luck in the weekend, you can hit the 40. But if you do not have it, there is some time you choke everything.
So talk to me about, we have a lot of pros on the podcast. Obviously, this will be our 15th pro we've had on, and a mixture of YouTubers as well. How would you go about breaking up your games at the weekend? Because we know how important the skill points are, the amount of people that missed out on qualification potentially for that Manchester event and in Barcelona because of skill points. Obviously, if you didn't know, the earlier you play your games on a Friday, obviously you get more skill points on there for any of our listeners. How would you go about playing your games, Rafsou? Do you play 5 on a Friday, 10 on a Friday? How do you space out your games at the weekend?
Me, and normally I do like 15 the Friday, and the 25 the Sunday, because I think Sunday it's much more easier, because there is a lot of player, and you can sneak, you can play some random players much easier than Saturday or Friday. I think there is the point who made the difference. The first time in Barcelona, I was 65th. I was 65th, and I was the first one to be how I can say it, like the first one to be kept after someone being maybe who choked, or who doesn't want to go, or something like that. And I know that you have to play much more Friday, but this is risky.
So for you finished 65th. What was the what sort of feelings were you expressing when you got the call that you might be going to Barcelona?
It was the Saturday, and I was talking to Tas. And I wasn't on my Xbox, and I was like maybe at 3 or 4 at the beginning of the day. I was like maybe 45, 46, something like that. And after the night, 6 at 7, at the end of the weekend league, it was like 6.5, and Tas was told me that I was 64, and there were only one player who could do it. If he won the game, he passed over me. It was, I think, Excel Persian. And if not, I will be 64 and he will be like 80 or something like that. And I was on my bed, and I was like praying all the 20 minutes he was playing. And after that, he sent me a message, and Persian won. And like for 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, I was praying something happened to someone, and for me to qualify.
And talk to me about how you went into Barcelona, because if you didn't know, to the listeners, this man did compete in Barcelona. I don't know what position you came in at Barcelona overall, but who was your first matchup in the Swiss style format?
The first match was versus Marlet.
So going into that, I think that was one of our games, because obviously we had some influence, like what games you want to have a look at on the stream, and I remember looking at that game and saying that is going to be a massive game there. What was your thoughts going into it? Because there's such a build-up about it, because there's so many people that play Fut Champions, and there's millions upon millions that play the game. So, going into that game, did you just take it as, to be honest, I could be playing against the guy that's next to me in 63rd, because the skill gap is just so, it's so close, and, Marlet, you could play against him on the weekend anyway, and we know how FIFA goes. One week you can win, another you can't. Was you quite nervous going into play Marlet, or was you thinking, right, I'm just going to take this like any other game?
No, I don't say I was stressed or something like that. I was like happy, and I wanted to win versus him, because at the FIWC last year, he was also my first match, and I was winning versus him at 1-0, and at the 19 minutes, sorry, at the 19th minute, he scored, and he equalized versus me, and after that I was like, I had to beat him this year. And I did it, But it was the only game I won. After that, I was like chalking all the games I did.
And what was your preparation going into the Barcelona event? Was it playing a lot of best of threes against other pros, other French pros? What was that like?
In France, we play a lot versus each other when it's international competition. But when it's French competition, we don't play a lot. And just before Barcelona, or just after, no, the two of them, before and after, it was the early one, so we didn't want it to play versus the others. So to practice, we had to do, or there is players who did season matches or draft matches, or there is also players who played versus other their friends, just to know what their problems maybe are an attack or a defense, and had to improve themselves with their friends. We didn't want it to play versus each other, because there were competition between us.
So do you think that's the key thing? Because we talked about this before in the podcast before. Is it a case of you don't want to play against your friends because you might give away your tactics as such? Is that something that is really key, especially going around? We'll come on to it later. The E-Ligue 1 out there in France. Is that one thing that you do then? Because I guess you guys are kind of limited to not play against each other because you don't want to give away all your tactics.
We are like maybe pro teams. Pro teams on football. If they want to practice, they practice on their own. I'm for Olympique Lyon, and Dax is for PSG, and if I practice with him all days, it's like there is something not competition in this. If I want to beat him, I have to do it on my own. I don't want to play versus him to know, this is his tactics, or he play like that. I had to do it on my own and to improve myself. And after in the tournament, I had to prove to all the players who are there that I am the better, and I have to beat them.
And to link in with that, we see it all over Twitter at the moment, pro versus pro, best of three, etc. Some people play season, some people play draft. For you personally, in between weekend league, what's the best thing for you to practice on?
Between the weekend league, I don't play at all at FIFA. Because doing 40 matches on the weekend, this is a lot. And after the week, there is sometimes I do some tournament like yesterday, but all the time I don't play. I just want to play other games to evacuate, to the pressure of FIFA, and not to go only to play, and after your brain is dead,
And linking back into that, talk to me about how. Firstly, how you signed for a football club, the statute that Olympique Lyon is, because we're seeing it more and more every day now. Obviously, the growth of esports organisations still, a phased TAS. Obviously, TAS going to phase, and questions whether Optic might come into FIFA in the next few months. But as we know, the football clubs are developing as well, and I talk about this a lot. The Eredivisie in Holland and especially in Germany, and more importantly in France with the Ligue 1, the E-League. There, it's a fantastic model they do there, and it's something that a number of, for example, like the Premier League should look towards if they do come into esports, which I hope they do. How did the move come about with Lyon? Because it's a massive move to make.
Olympique Lyon or PSG, we were the first teams to bring it on in France, to go to the how can I say it, to the competition, and they wanted to try to do competition on FIFA because it was the best video game, because they do football and FIFA is football, and how can I say, to learn to people what's esport, they had to go to FIFA, and after that they tried to recruit some, for them, good players. They tried to do it for a lot of months before I was in Lyon. It was last year, the January. I went to Lyon, sorry, and they were trying to do it like 2 years ago. So I think there are teams who are working on it, but we don't know who want to bring it on and who want to really want to go in.
And to link into that, it's one thing that we spoke about quite a lot in our Live for the Pro video we did with Ajax Kuhn. It's the people behind the scenes that don't get the recognition that take that risk, isn't it? The guys that think, right, we're going to give esports a go, as you said in France. PSG and Lyon were the two that took that risk, and it's a fantastic risk that they took because people are really starting to understand that FIFA esports has got so much potential.
Yeah, but because now we're on TV, I think this is the thing that the men's or women's who watching TV, watching us playing FIFA on TV, and my parents, at the first time they were like, no, we're not going to do this all the time, all day. We'll not try to work for Lyon. We will do some how can I say, to have to go to high school and all this. I did the two of them, but you can't do both at the same time, And I had to play FIFA because it was opportunity, and now that they watch me play on TV, they watch me. There is people on the street who recognize me. They learn and they know now that FIFA is not something like we will not see it in 2 years. It's gonna be huge and big and even bigger in the future.
And jumping into FIFA itself, what's your go-to formation at the minute for you in weekend league? What are some of the standout players in your squad?
I think all the players, all the pros have Ronaldo, Cristiano, all the players, maybe all the players in Weekend League right now, because the teams on Weekend League right now are so good, And for me, I play on 4-2-3-1. I think this is the French style, because I don't know many people in France who played other formation, And I play like with Ronaldinho, Bale, Neymar, who have Pogba, Vieira, and I think we all have maybe the same team approximately, And after that, as you said, the skill gap isn't as it was maybe 2 years ago, and even if you have 2 or 3 players maybe better than your opponent, it's going to be tough to win them, Do
you think as well, it's a great point that we talk about a lot of the time with maybe like the Americas players kind of against the EU players. It's interesting you said there, just, in your own country, in France, that the French players have their own system, or everyone plays a certain formation. Do you think that's something that's quite true? We saw it quite a lot last year, especially the FIWC. When a European player came up against the Americas players, is that something that before you maybe go into a game or a big tournament, you might look at how your opponent plays, like their play style?
I did it just once. Just once I tried to know how my opponent was playing, because because my opponent was a French guy, and he know how to do skills, he know how to use a flip, all the skills of the game, and I had to learn how to counterattack this, because it was at the final of the E-League 1, I beat Rocky and Dax on semi-final, and the other, I think, quarter or something like that. And at the final, it was another player. I don't know if you know him. This is Azik, and this player used a lot of skills, and I had 2 weeks to practice versus other players who just do skills versus me. I had to practice to know how he plays. Sorry, and this is the only time. Other time, I'm a player, I think, who can adapt myself to other players. I can possess the ball, and I can go counter attack. I can skill. I can do long shots. So for me, this is not a problem. There is players who do that, but me, I don't do that.
And personally for you, how important is the mental side of FIFA, having a positive mindset going into games and being confident in your own ability?
Oh, FIFA, for me, I said it a lot of times, but FIFA, this is 90% mental and 10% skill, because if your mental is dead in the tournament, this is over. You can't go back. You can't be back of someone who break the line. For me, for example, me at Barcelona at the time, I punched the table, because I couldn't score. I just hit the post like 3 times versus Dreamor, and at this time, we're humans, and at the time, you want to break up, you want to break all the things you have in front of you, and just go out of the scene, because you can't do anything. But this is not the thing you had to do. There is some players like Gorilla who never breaks the line, or some a player like Bruce Granick. He was like the perfect man who doesn't. You don't see something on his face. He score a goal, he's not happy. He concede a goal, he's not happy. And this is the perfect man to learn how to be concentrate in a game.
And linking into that, how important do you think? Because we're seeing so many angles now with the world of FIFA. As you said, obviously Bruce Granick and Brack, obviously commentators now. Obviously Bruce Granick, a legend in the FIFA scene. How important now is a coach, would you say? You see a lot more coaches now at these big events. Do you think a coach is quite important, to come over your shoulder and compose you, or would you rather not have a coach as a player yourself?
I will take the example of Bruce Granick. He was, I think, the first. I think one of the first to take a coach, and because of that, he won a lot of competition. And after that, all the players said like, "Oh, who is this man? Who is this guy? I want a coach. Me too. And right now, we're all with friends or coaches behind us, because they are our backup. If we're gonna break the line, they had to stop us to help us to be concentrated at the maximum on the game, and it's for that this is important. I think this is the only thing right now that all the players had to have behind them.
If someone's struggling with that mental side of the game, what sort of tips would you give to a player to try and strengthen that?
if I had some advices for someone, it's gonna be advices for me, because at home you don't have your coach, and this is where I think the most pros break the line, and no one know that. And as we saw it was like 4 or 5 months ago, Futwiz, what was his name? Someone from Futwiz stopped.
Fut with Sam.
Who was?
Fut with Sam,
I think.
I believe.
Yeah, he stopped FIFA because he said that it was caused a lot of damage on his brain. He was gonna be he was gonna be sick. It caused a lot of damage on mental health, and he has to stop it. And there is, I think, a lot of people who are just behind this, who want to stop all of this, because the game FIFA, this is hard to be in the game, to be concentrated at 100%.
And it's interesting you say that as well, as Richard said. In a lot of these podcasts, we just want to just sit back, let the pro talk, and less about us, more about the pro. The last kind of few questions I want to ask before we close the podcast is, take me back to that. You said Club World Cup, FIFA Interactive Club World Cup that happened last year. Obviously, I believe there is one again happening this year. Waiting for more information about that, and fingers crossed we can be lucky enough to commentate at it. Going into that tournament, you said it was one of your best tournaments, and obviously you finished second behind Expect Sporting, but you won your Xbox side of things. What was it about that tournament that just felt different? Was it the way you approached it, or was it just everything clicked on the day and you was playing fantastic FIFA?
The first 2 matches I won them. It was like versus the Dr. Irano and Tim Latka. I think they were the best players on my group, and I won versus them. And I have the confidence. And after that, you can't lose. In your brain, you did the impossible thing, and you can't lose just after. And you are like, I'm just gonna break all the players in front of me. And I won versus Vinch. I won again versus Tim Latka. And after, I think I won on the console of Expect Sporting. And at this moment, I was thinking, it's done. I played on your console. I played at your home. I won you. How you can win versus me? And after that, I was like overconfident. And this is a lesson for me. To lose, maybe it was good for me to lose than win, because it learned to me that it's never finished.
Yeah, once again, very, very insightful. Last question from me. Can you tell us a little bit about the E-League and your success that you've had in that competition?
No, like I told you, this loss and other losses were lessons. At the ESWC, it was at the beginning of the year, at October, November, something like that. I went to the final versus Dax, and just before in the semi-final, I won Rocky. Like this year, I'm the only one to play the 2 of them all the time. I don't know why, but this is I don't have the luck, And versus Dax, it was not a BO3, it was how can I say it? Home, and you have to play. How can I say it?
Like away legs.
Yeah, away and home.
Yep.
And the first match with 0-0, and the second match I lost 3-0. And at this point I was like, just a little. And after, I think if I goes to the final, I was playing versus Cody, their finisher. He's a very good player, but I was thinking, if I won Dax, I will win the tournament, because he was the champion in title. He had the title last year, and this loss learned me that I have to do something more to be the winner. And just after, like 4 months after, we had Elite 1, and in my in the group stage, I won all the players. They were, I think, not as good as the pros we play at the international competition. So it was, I think, easy for me. And just after, I was first in the group. I had to play Rocky again. You know, I was the man who didn't score, didn't concede a goal, and I scored like 15 or 16, something like that. And after that, they told me I have to play Rocky, and I was like excited, but I was like not happy because I was thinking like I was going to play someone not as good as him, you know. And I made it. I won versus him again, you know, 2 times in 1 year. And he was the player in, I think, 2 years. He didn't lose. When he lost versus Manica last year, it was in the away and home match in the final of the League One. They did 2-2 and 1-1, so he didn't lose a game. And in 1 year, I was like, oh, I beat you 2 times. How can't I win this tournament? I'm the only one to do it. All the time, I am the player who defeat you. So in the quarterfinal, I played versus someone, I don't know who he is. I won. And semi-final, I had to play versus Dax again. And he was, I think, he was the best tournament he did. He said it. He played like the best gameplay he could do. But I managed to counter all the things he did, and I win it because on my brain, on my head, I had to. I was the only one to beat Rocky. How can you defeat me again? I can't, because if I lose, you know, I can't see. I can't go and watch Rocky like I beat you, but all the time Dax is gonna win me just after you. So no, I can't do that. And this is for that. I think this time I won.
And as you said, Rafsou, you know, I think it's really important that one thing that, you know, me and Richard do say a lot is you do need to lose to learn. You know, as crazy as that sounds, you have to lose against the best players and test yourself against the very best to get better in it. And it's one thing we always say, you know, to people that want to get into this scene, you have to play against the best players to really improve. So I think that wraps it up from Rafsou there. A really talented French player you do need to watch out for, because he will be competing for a chance to get in the FIFA E-World Cup playoffs via the E-Ligue 1 over in France, and obviously he represents Olympique Lyon there. But Richard, again, you know, I find myself saying this again and again and again, but we're just meeting more pros, we're getting more pros on, and we're getting more insightful information out to create a fantastic podcast once again.
Yeah, insightful, the main word there, Brandon. Some really, really good stuff from Rafsou, getting inside the mind of a pro, and really the mental side. If you're only going to listen to one little bit of the podcast, that section, really, really interesting stuff, and a lot of people can learn who do go through the same struggles. Like when you're thinking about maybe throwing a controller or getting angry, you need to think that, look, this isn't just me. Loads of people feel the same way, and as Rafsou, I should say, did speak about there. So very, very pleased with this podcast, Brandon.
Most definitely indeed. So a massive thank you to Olympique Lyon Rafsou. We wish him all the best for this year. And this wraps up another podcast, episode 15 of the Fut Champs Pod. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. We're approaching 500 subs over there. Once again, we can't thank you enough for support every single week we get over on YouTube and our audio links. And as I always say, enjoy your weekend league. I hope it all goes well for you, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
If you like what you're hearing, why not subscribe? Just go to @FutChampionsPod on Twitter, drop a follow, and then you'll find all your subscription options in the pinned tweet. Oh, and also, while I've got you, why not check out this podcast, More Casual Older Brother, the Fut Weekly podcast, for in-depth reviews, Team of the Week rundown, content chat, and general Fut discussion.